What's up, everyone? Kevin Allen here, aka The Geek from DFS Army, and this is your NFL Week 2 Week in Review. All right, we're looking back on NFL Week 2, trying to figure out what we can figure out, what we can learn. We're going to take a look at the cash lineup. We're going to take a look at the DFS Army tools that help us get to our cash game approach for this week. And then we're going to take a look at what took down the Millie Maker or the big tournaments on Draftkings and see if we could have replicated it, if we were on the right track, or how it could have been achieved. So starting off right here, what you see on screen on the left side is my cash lineup for NFL Week 2. And I've actually used on the right-hand side a player that's going to a familiar player to me, 000 Princess. Anybody who has numbers in their DraftKings name at the beginning, they do that on purpose so that they show up at the top of the head-to-head. So these are always heavy chalk cash game players. So I like to look at their lineup to get a sense of what the field did. And then I'm going to show you how they came to their lineup, how I came to my lineup, and why I absolutely smashed in cash. And hopefully everybody from DFS Army did as well in NFL Week 2. So as you can see here, first thing I'm actually going to show you, this is my lineup for Week 2. I actually used Daniel Jones at the helm, and I'll explain why I wanted Carson Wentz. I talked about Carson Wentz all week as the best cash game play, or Lamar Jackson. Those were the two areas. But I wanted to also squeeze in some talent at running back and pay up a little bit. So I took my shot paying down for Daniel Jones, and it did pay off, and I'll show you exactly why it paid off. But before we even kind of go over these cash lineups, what I'm going to show you is the DFS Army chalkboard. And this is a tool that all DFS Army subscribers have access to throughout the week. And you're going to see where, when we talk about cash games, you eat the chalk. We take the chalk, we take the highest owned players, and we assume, all right, those are who people are going to want to play in cash. So even just by having this tool, and I talked about this on the Players Club for DFS Army VIPs on Saturday, we could pretty much figure out exactly what most lineups were going to look like. It actually helps to understand that, not just in cash games, but in tournaments, because we could pivot off it. So we noticed that Derek Carr was the highest projected owned player. I listened to some podcasts or some content around the industry, and I saw that he was also going to be the highest owned player in tournaments, which made me lick my chops. It was such an easy tournament fade of Derek Carr. What are you people thinking? There's still edge in DFS, and we did a whole half-hour discussion about why it was stupid to play Derek Carr in tournaments NFL Week 2. That if you were a DFS Army VIP and you watched the Players Club, you would have seen and known and avoided in tournaments. But Derek Carr was going to be the chalk cash quarterback. Now, I didn't love Derek Carr, but I thought he was a fine cash play at his price, but I did want to get a little bit of differentiation. If we take a look here, you'll see that Lamar Jackson popped as number 2 on our sort of leaderboard with Stafford number 3. Both of those would have been much better plays than Derek Carr. And of course, if you follow my content throughout the week, I was on Carson Wentz as my primary cash line quarterback, and he absolutely smashed, and it was easy money if you played him at the quarterback position in cash. Again, moving down to the wide receiver position, and you can see how the chalkboard tells the tale, right? And I'm going to show you. Devontae Adams and Greg Dortch, we knew every single, the vast majority of cash games were going to do that, right? Devontae Adams was popping on the projection models as well, and Greg Dortch was this extreme value at 3,500. So we knew every lineup. And the nice thing about the Dortch-Adams combo was it didn't matter that Adams had a dud because your opponent played him as well. So Adams' dud, it just negated itself. Similarly with Saquon Barkley, his dud, it didn't matter because your opponent played him in cash. And that's the safety of cash. I've been preaching all offseason, especially play a lot of these head-to-head matchups in cash. You'll get essentially what are chalk opponents doing chalky things. There were some weird things that people were doing in cash week 1 where I knew I was going to make money. I'm like, it was pretty much understood that you're going to make money when people do dumb things and when the field does dumb things. And I'll get to some of the dumb things they did in a minute. But let's say you went Adams, Dortch, and either Hill or Kupp or Amon-Ra. So you couldn't, it was really hard to afford Tyreek Hill, but if you got there, you smashed. It was way too difficult to afford Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams. So scratch him off. And the next man up was Amon-Ra St. Brown. and he was projecting really well. He was one of the top projected players. If you didn't adjust the domination station, you got almost 100% Amon-Ra this week. And, he was right up there in his ownership projection. And luckily, he was above Jerry Jeudy. And you'll see here that this was the difference between DFS Army projections and not, right? My lineup has Amon-Ra St. Brown in it. The princess over here who tries to fool people by calling himself a princess, like, oh, I'm a sucker. Well, he played Jerry Jeudy, and he was a sucker this week with the 83-point disaster. But that was actually a pretty common score in cash for people who just use the straight chalk. So what I did in mine was I went down from Derek Carr to Daniel Jones, and I used 1,000 in savings to pay up from Jeudy to Amon-Ra. So it worked out really, really well for me. The other change that I made, and I talked about this throughout the week, I was actually going to even punt deeper with Juwan Jameson or whoever the $2,500, and actually did just fine, the $2,500 tight end from the Saints was. But I didn't actually end up needing to, just kind of the way it worked out. But the other piece of chalk that I just thought was ridiculous was Albert O. I still laugh about it. I mean, I had Mark Andrews core, but we couldn't afford to play Mark Andrews. Albert O chalk, how that is the worst kind of chalk. They throw to multiple tight ends in Denver. That was just bad chalk. And Albert O got a 0, and that certainly helped smash all of the sort of plain chalk guys. But had you just moved away from him, we literally talked about not playing him. So even though he stood out on the chalkboard, we knew to avoid it. And you could have just played Higbee. He got you 12 points for a similar price. Waller was fine as well. So Juwan Johnson was the one that I liked the most. But I didn't need the savings, so I went up to Logan Thomas, who was here on the chalkboard as well. So at defense, everybody played the Bengals this week. And again, we talked about this throughout the week in the content that, you just eat that chalk in cash. Who cares? Your opponent will have him. You want to pay down on defense in cash games. So here's another example of a cash game lineup that I went up against with my head-to-head. Again, it's really, really important if you play cash games on DraftKings and FanDuel that you only make one lineup. People make a mistake of making a lot of lineups. I don't understand it. Make one lineup. Watch the video I made in the offseason, how to win on DraftKings in 2022. It explains everything. It explains why it's so important not just to play in cash, but to play head-to-heads in cash, which a lot of people are weirdly afraid of. And also max out the $1, $2, and $3 level if you are not restricted from those contests like I am. I can only enter $5 and higher. You don't have to face me. I'm making good cash lineups. You don't want to face me. You want to face other people who play for $1, $2, or $3. So make sure you max those out. This fellow here, or lady, again, went with the chalk. Carr, Barkley, Dortch, Adams, right? Did the same kind of chalk approach. Fournette, Mixon, and Barkley. So instead of Gibson, he paid up a little bit more for Fournette. That didn't work out very well, but I thought Fournette was an acceptable and a perfectly fine play this week. And again, the big difference between these two lineups, he did save the money on Juwan Johnson, but he used it to spend up for Derek Carr and Fournette, which did not really help the lineup. And of course, Amon-Ra's smash game. I didn't mind Christian Kirk. I didn't love him in cash, but I mean, I think it was a fine play. He's been getting targeted a lot, even though the matchup on paper didn't look that great, but it was not to be their day. So all it took was 132. I won 42 out of 49 head-to-heads. That's a 90% win rate. That's about as good as it gets. Now, it was easy to get there using DFS Army tools and, of course, the Domination Station Optimizer. I'm going to show you something here. Now, I want to take a look at, well, actually, before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset settings on the DFS Army Optimizer. And one of the cool things we have on the Domination Station Optimizer is something called backtest mode. And in backtest mode, you can rerun the slate in backtest mode. And we're gonna do a little backtest action to try to replicate the tournament winning lineup this week. But first, I want to show you what would have happened if you just if you just hit optimize and played the top optimal or some version of the top optimal in cash. Of course, we have to make a couple of adjustments. So we'll give a like to some players that we were definitely going to use in cash, like Bengals defense, like let's call it Dortch here, right? So we were using these guys anyway. Let's put the likes on them to make sure they show up in this lineup. We're just going to hit a run here and see what the standard. So had you just played the essentially what was the top optimal, and again, I would switch out, it was an easy swap out, but had we just played the top optimal this week, it gave you Derek Carr, Barkley, Gibson, Adams, Amon-Ra, Dortch, Alberto, Henderson, and Bengals defense. Or it's a winning cash lineup. You would have won all your contests pretty much that week. And then if you were wise enough to just swap out Albert O for any of the many better tight end options in the zone, I would have swapped it out for Logan Thomas, of course. And that would, if you swap him out for Logan Thomas, that would get you that 130. Basically, essentially, that's my lineup. So that's what pretty much what I played with Logan Thomas in here. And then you would have had to swap out Josh Jacobs. So again, baseline lineup scored 124, top optimal, let's call it. And then the very easy swap from Albert O and his 0 over to Logan Thomas gets you to 136 and actually outscoring the lineup that I put in this week. So there we go. Easy money. If you're a DFS Army subscriber and you play in cash games, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. Now, what I want to look at next is what won the big tournament. Now, week 1, DFS Army subscriber Rapid Fire XD took down the Millie Maker. Amazing. Week 2, and I'm just looking at the flea flicker because that's what I've got on my screen here, but the tournament winning lineup, and I'm assuming something very similar to this took down the Millie Maker, was this Tua double stack with Hill, Waddle, and the bring back of Mark Andrews. So welcome back, double stack. Where have you been, right? It's been a long, long time since a QB +2 with the bring back took down a major GPP, but we saw that it can happen, and it does. When it does happen, it is freaking glorious. To me, the hardest part about NFL Week 2 was the RB position. And you'll see that was the most difficult. There's literally only one running back that had a good game, from what I can tell. Like, if I'm missing something, let me know in the comment section. But as far as I recall, actually, you know what? I don't need you to let me know. I can see it here. So let's take a look and see what the running back position did. I'm also going to show you my cheat sheet for NFL Week 2 in a minute, and you'll see where we missed. We missed at running back because only one running back had a good game, right? Final fantasy points. Nick Chubb, Tony Pollard snuck one in there. But really, I mean, these were not great games. Damian Harris is 16. Who's playing him? DeAndre Swift got very lucky and still didn't make value against his 7K price tag. Tony Pollard did. But again, super low owned, almost unowned Tony Pollard. And we had Nick Chubb, very low owned, that smashed. And he was talked about on Tournament Tactics by Bob. Bob was touting the shit out of him in Tournament Tactics show, NFL Week 2. Make sure you're watching those shows because Bob, congrats. Josiah, congrats on that killer recommendation. But again, the running back position, as you can see here, all the chalk basically failed. We had terrible scores across the board. So a lot of times the winning way was just to use Jeff Wilson and say YOLO. But look at all the chalk running backs. Everybody did poorly. So if you pick poorly at running back in Week 2, okay, you're supposed to feel bad. Only one running back did well. Only Nick Chubb. That was it. Don't feel bad. You didn't do anything wrong. I'll take a look. I'll show you my cheat sheet. Yeah. If you see my cheat, we missed. No one did well. Everybody missed. Only one guy did well. Or Tony Pollard. Who the hell's playing Tony Pollard? Playing Tony Pollard? What are you, nuts? So they all failed. Take a look at my cheat sheet as well. Just kind of going over some of the things. I mean, we loved Lamar Jackson, and that worked. He was my top play on the slate, and he was the best play outside of Tua. He absolutely destroyed the slate. We had, we had Carson Wentz as an all formats play. That's your cash indicator. I did not include Derek Carr at all in this. That was a warning. There's no place where I thought it was appropriate to play Derek Carr. I could have played him in cash, but we kept him off the list. Matthew Stafford had a good game, and of course Daniel Jones messed up, but I used him in cash and it worked out. But our 2 cash game quarterbacks in week 2 both absolutely smashed with Lamar Jackson and Carson Wentz. Again, at the running back position, it was just a disaster. The core play, Saquon Barkley was a disaster. Everything was bad. We had the names, but we didn't get on Chubb. I normally don't play Chubb on DraftKings. Wide receiver, we really were on some good plays and some bad plays. Obviously, Devontae Adams did not work out well at all. He was going to be the chalk. Tyreek Hill, though, 4-star play, absolute smash play. Amon-Ra, we had him in all formats as your top cash play in this area. And, of course, he killed it. Did not get on Jalen Waddle. Wasn't into Jalen Waddle. Did love Curtis Samuel, though. He had a great game. Cash guy, if you could afford him. My cash lineup just didn't go that way, but I certainly liked Jalen Samuel. And we had both Greg Dortch and we had an interesting alternative here in Ashton Dolan, who was looking like the winner of that duel up until the end when Greg Dortch popped off and kind of did his thing at the end. So that being said, let's take a look at what the tournament winning lineup looked like. 269.96 points. It's a Tua double stack with Hill, Waddle, and Mark Andrews, and then a build around for the rest of it. Jaguars defense was probably a really, really important component here. So we're going to do a quick back test with a little bit of cheating. I don't want to do this. I don't want to spend 25, 30 minutes back testing, but if we simply create a stack position QB with no less than 2 wide receiver, tight end, same team, and 1 opposing team, right? So, and we're going to lock Tua for this one just because I want to see what Tua lineups would look like. Actually, you know what? I'll lock these 2 and we'll do 50% exposure on each. We'll do 50 lineups to try to get us there. But I'm going to lock those 2 just because for the purpose of this, I want to quickly see what and how much it would take to get to the perfect lineup. Actually, the other thing I have to do is love some of those loves I did before. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, we can take that off. Take that off. Now, let's see what kind of lineups we produce just with. Well, something went wrong there. Oh, yeah, you can't lock. I don't know what I did here. They're not locked. So let's try that again. Just want to make sure this is doing what I want. Yeah, here we go. So we're going to be pushing both of these guys in to all of our lineups. And the other thing we have to do, unfortunately, is try to figure out a way to get Chubb in the lineup. Like, the only way you're winning this tournament is if you played some Chubb. So what I'm going to do, because I don't want to fully cheat it, is I'm going to say, let's say we just wanted to play some Chubb. We're going to force in 35% Chubb. I'm actually going to use my other standard options for tournaments. Let's go 3 uniques, 0 RB in the flex. Usually I left 10 or 15%, but this was a particularly horrible week for running backs. I'm not going to include tight ends in the flex here as well. And the other thing I want to do is smash a love on core Mark Andrews. I want to point out here on the cheat sheet that, of course, we had Mark Andrews as the core play. Zach Ertz was another top play. Both of them absolutely smashed. We nailed the tight end position, and we did really well with wide receiver this week. It was really just Tua and the running backs. And again, I've got no excuse for the running backs other than only one guy did well. So what the hell do you want? I mean, it's hard to hit that one guy that does well. And if you don't, you're not winning a tournament. So from here, I'm going to give it a run of the 50 lineups. I want to see what kind of scores we can produce. A little bit of cheating by forcing some of that by forcing some of that Chubb exposure. We're going to sort by final fantasy points. There you go. I mean, that's not bad. So with just a little bit of forcing, and this top lineup didn't even have Chubb in it, but we could see here we got a 245 as our top generated lineup. Yeah, it's a Tua, Hill, Waddle, Andrews, Dortch, Bengals. We got to deal with them. So the other way to produce the tournament winner, we almost got there. So the only other thing we really need to do here is, number one, we talked about just completely eliminating the Bengals. So part of what we talked about on the Players Club this week was completely eliminating Bengals defense from your player pool in tournaments, because they were going to be so chalk and they were the cash chalk. You don't want to play that defense in tournaments. But what we also happen to know is that the Bucs did well, but primarily the Jaguars had the great game. So I'm going to smash a love on the Jaguars, see if we can get some Jaguars exposure. I would not have been playing Falcons. 49ers were fine, very expensive. So yeah, let's see if we can get some Jaguars in there. And if we rerun this, if we can't match or exceed the tournament winning lineup score, we're making about 50 lineups here. So let's see, but we should get pretty close on this particular run. So let's see what happens here. Yeah, I mean 259.46. What one? 269.96. So we got really, really close. It looks like you got to go down to Jeff Wilson and probably pay up a little bit higher in another spot to fully get there. But I mean, this is a 259.46 on our second run, which was good for third place in this particular. Wow, this guy high traffic, by the way. Wow. Talk about nailing a slate. He must have been all in on Jaguars or something like that, or this Tua stack, because, man, talk about nailing a slate. He nailed it. But here we go. So, yeah, the problem is it's still giving us Saquon Barkley. So we're going to have to limit these guys a little bit and try for a little bit more diversity here at the running back position if we're going to try to take this tournament down in sort of a somewhat legitimate way. Let's go down to Jeff Wilson Jr. We're going to smash a love on him, see if we can get some of that. And we're going to set a max limit of 25%, 30% across all but Nick Chubb, who we will leave at 35%. So let's give this one more run here. See the tight end position. Got mostly Mark Andrews. That's who we wanted. We loved him. And let's see what's happening at wide receiver in our general exposures. Getting a lot of Hill, Dortch, still a lot of Devontae Adams. Cedric, I don't know who that is. So I'm pulling him, but Amon-Ra. Yeah, I love Amon-Ra. So let's give this one more run. I do know who Cedric Wilson is, but you would never play him. So that's an interesting thing to note, is that when you have forced QB plus 2 stacks, it's going to grab that WR3, that turd that you normally wouldn't play. And normally when I run the domination station, I will, like here's another guy, Demarcus Robinson. Well, where's he coming from? I'm not using him. So normally when I run the domination station, I'll pare down my player pool. We did this in the setup build. I'll pare down my player pool, remove a lot of the garbage that I just have no interest in playing, and give it another run. And again, I did not stack. I definitely didn't double stack too. I didn't double stack it with the bring back. And as a matter of fact, we found that for the most part, double stack with the bring back has not worked the last couple of years. But here it is. It worked this week. So here you go. So with ultimate cheat code on, we just hit a final score of 284, which absolutely destroyed any sort of tournaments this week. There's a 259. So our highest score was 284. I actually want to see what this looks like with fewer uniques, when we're kind of on the winning approach. But we hit the 284 just there. And again, that easily, with the benefit of hindsight, easily smashes through this 270, 15 points more. So there were higher lineups to be achieved. Certainly with my boy Amon-Ra in the mix, that's how you got there. And I'm actually really curious to see how did we get to that 284. That's Tua, Chubb, Wilson, Reek, Amon-Ra, Waddle. Yeah, Andrews, Dortch. I mean, it doesn't even seem that crazy, right? It doesn't even seem that crazy. How is this not hit? What one? Oh, it wasn't Dortch because they paid. So the winning lineup used Kirk and Jahan Dotson, right? Kirk and Dotson. Whereas you could have done better using Dortch and Amon-Ra. So that's the big difference. 284. Again, our second lineup's at 259 again. I think what's happening here is we're not hitting much Christian Kirk, which is why we're not achieving that other lineup. I assume if we increase the number of lineups we're making from 50, let's say we went to 100. And by the way, it's not even that big of a cheat code. We're only making 50 lineups. So in this case, we're only making 25 Tua lineups, which is a standard number of lineups if it was running 150. The main thing was just having Chubb. So if we nailed the running back position, the rest of it all would have came together, and it's using these 3-man stacks. So anyway, I'm going to do one last stack to see like how incredible our scores can be. If we make a few more lineups, I want to see if it gets, more of these sort of in-betweeners, but we already hit the 284, there's a 264, and there's a 259. So with fewer uniques, you do start to nail some better lineups, but obviously this is just a little bit of cheating. We're not normally going to play this much Tyreek or this much of a lot of these players, but I just wanted to see what we can do to achieve the winning lineup using DFS Army Domination Station Optimizer. It wasn't too hard, but you did need a Tua +2 and bring back type of stack in order to get there. And what we can take away from this is, let's be better or I don't know about let's be better. I'm going to say on weeks where we can predict the running back spot in a better way and nail some of those great running back plays, we'll have exponentially higher chances of sort of taking the rest of it down. But on weeks where you miss across the board on your running backs, you're probably going to be happy to get away with any money. So that's going to do it for our DraftKings NFL Week 2 week in review. If you have not done so already, make sure you're subscribed to this channel, hit the notification bell. We do these reviews every week. And of course, check out the DraftKings first look lineup that we have already put out there. Taking a look at NFL Week 3. We have a FanDuel first look lineup coming out as well, and a whole schedule of DFS content, betting content, everything you need right here on the DFS Army YouTube channel. So make sure you are subscribed and you hit that notification bell. If you are not currently signed up at DFS Army and you want access to these tools, not after the fact, but during the season, in season where you can smash, you want to win cash games, it's not that hard. We've got the tools to help you do it. If you're in DFS Army and you're not doing this, please use the tools as described and as you should. You should be able to absolutely dominate at least your cash games each week and hopefully take down a tournament or two over the course of a season. If you go to dfsarmy.com right now and you get signed up as a VIP, it's only $69.99 a month, and you get 10% off with promo code GEEK. VIP covers every sport under the sun. If you only are an NFL person, you could either do the 12-month package. We've still got it out there for $249.99. You get 12 months of NFL, best ball, off-season, season-long, and DFS all in one, or you could do the monthly at $39.99. And promo code GEEK does take 10% off of that as well. So get signed up at DFS Army. Go do it now. Don't wait. You want to start winning. You're sick of losing on DraftKings. This is what we do. We're going to take down more millions this year. We're going to crush cash games this year as we always do. Join us, be a part of the movement, and be a part of the community. I will see you guys next time on the next Week in Review.